Hey Thomas, Neville Appert from Snowboard Addiction, how's it going? So I understand you got some questions on backside 360s. There was a whole bunch of different questions, so I'm going to play through the video just so I can answer all the different stuff you were asking. If you have any footage of you doing it on a snowboard, that would be really helpful because then I can really see what's going wrong and what's going right on a snowboard. Training on a training board obviously does help to be able to learn the motion of 360, but it does have certain differences when you're actually on a snowboard, such as using an edge. When you're on the ground, you don't really need to use an edge. When you're leaving off a jump on a snowboard, you definitely need to use an edge. So I've skipped about halfway through your video here until where you started asking some of the questions, and I'll respond to the various things that you've asked.
Are you not thinking about bringing your leg with you?
Okay.
You do. Makes sense, maybe.
So one of the first things you asked was about what gets released at what time. So I'm just gonna bring the camera down here so you can see my upper body. It looks to me like you're a regular snowboarder, same as me. When it comes to making a back three, a lot of the momentum is built with your upper body first. And what I mean by that is, as you say, you're winding up with your upper body, which includes your arms, your shoulders, your chest, and even your hips. So there's this moment where you wind up and release that momentum. And what you're asking about is, when does the legs come into it? When does the legs come into it? And basically what it means is, once you've created enough momentum for a 360, the easiest way to learn is to bring your legs, your upper and lower body around at the same time. So what that means is, you wind up, you create the momentum, you release the momentum, and then as you release that momentum, your lower body jumps, comes around with your upper body. So there's a tying factor here, which is your core muscles. And if you can get your lower body and your upper body to come around at the same time, that's the easiest way to learn a 360. When people learn, they quite often do a lot of this, where they're like, oh, the upper body and lower body's coming around at different times. You don't want that. Now on the ones you jumped, you're actually doing it quite well. You're creating the momentum, you're releasing the momentum and jumping at the same time, which is how I'd recommend doing it on a snowboard. So I'm going to go into the video again here.
Also, I think I have a bad habit of jumping with both legs. I was wondering, I know you said to focus on keeping the tail on the kicker as long as you can as you're rotating off. I just wondering if you had any ideas for like a drill to work on that. I guess.
Cool, so I've got some feedback on that. Is that when you're first doing your first 360s, the easiest way to do it is going to be jumping off both feet. The reason it's easiest is because you're not going to have to think about what leg to take off. As you get better, you're going to be taking more and more off the tail. So the most ideal way to leave a jump is right off the tail of your board. That's going to give you the most height, the most pop of a board. And when you get good at doing 360s, you do leave off the tail of your board. But when you're first learning it, that can be complex. So there's no problem with jumping off both feet at the start and moving it to that tail as you get better. So hopefully that'll answer that question.
Just a bad habit of mine at this point, and just how much snap do you actually go into when you're snapping off a jump? Because I feel like I can really wind up a lot. I feel like you're not winding up that much. Normally I feel like I really only get to like this point.
So the question of how much wind up to use is a good question. And it depends on what size jump you're on. So if you're on a very small jump, you're going to have to wind up and release a lot of energy to get a 360 round. So when I say a small jump, let's say if it's like 5 foot in distance from where you take off to where you land, that's a pretty small jump. You have to use quite a bit of momentum to be able to get a 360 round on a 5 foot jump. Now, the amount of energy you're using here at home is probably similar to the amount of energy you'd use for a small 5 foot jump. It's a very, very quick 360. As the jumps get bigger and bigger, you can use less and less energy. So if you're going to go take it off a 10 foot jump, you can wind up and release less. If you're going to go on a 20 foot jump, even less. So the bigger the jump gets, the less you have to be able to create and release that energy. But for learning, most people are learning on very small jumps, kind of like what you're doing here at home. And a lot of wind up and release is necessary at this stage. So I know that in a sec you're actually going to jump a couple.
And then maybe just some demonstration ones so there's something to look at. Sorry, I'm not that great on camera.
So here we go, we've got a couple of demos here.
So
That one was a little bit front foot heavy, but your actual wind up and release was good. When I say good, you wind up, you released, and you bring your legs around at the same time as your upper body. So there was that tying factor between your upper and lower body. That's what you want to do on a snowboard, especially as you're learning.
Yeah, I was struck
I think your next ones get even better.
too much and not having a flat spin.
So here we go. There we go. A little bit front foot heavy again, but in general the 360 is looking pretty good. That one's even better.
Yeah, if there's any.
So that amount of rotation you're using there is what you do on a very small jump. A lot of energy jumping off both feet, and that's how you learn a backside 360. You can even just do it riding across a slope. So you could be cruising across a slope on your toe edge and practicing jumping these 360s, okay? One other thing I'd really recommend is, have you tried backside 180s? Because learning backside 180s is a crucial step in learning backside threes that a lot of people tend to skip over. A lot of people want to get their whole 360 round, but I'm sometimes like, hey, let's get a really good 180, really clean 180. You don't have to use that much energy. There's not a lot of wind up and release needed for a 180, and you still get the feeling of going off a jump on your toe edge. Once you get that feeling of going off a jump on a toe edge, then you can start to put more energy in to get the 360 round. So if you haven't done good backside 180s, don't skip that step. It's a crucial step. Other than that, if you have a video of you actually doing a 360, you want to send that through, I'm happy to take a look and see what's going on. Hopefully this has helped answer those questions for you. And if not, hit me back and I'll do some more work. This is Nev Lapwood from Snowboard Addiction. Our goal is to improve your riding.